we are a little bit different than most communities when it comes to that. Normally, the supervisory positions are salaried and they're not union. The supervisors themselves are not in a union. So when I went to my cohort, I brought that up at my table during lunch, and I got some really funny looks. They were like, "Are you kidding? Your supervisor is in the union and they're not salaried. What do you do about the overtime problem?" So we struggle with the overtime problem. That's what we do. So
just to clarify, Dwayne, I'm sorry, but it is a salaried position already, but you're saying to change it to salaried non-exempt or salaried exempt?
well, I think it needs to be
Now it's salaried non-exempt, meaning they can work overtime.
right.
You
Yep.
have to be salaried exempt.
Which is what it is right now, right?
That's what this is saying right here.
The one we
Salaried exempt, and if I'm correct, I think that non-exempt is the one that allows for overtime.
Salary exempt allows overtime?
Salary non-exempt.
Non-exempt. So
Yeah,
how did it
So,
get,
yeah, we've been paying overtime the whole time.
non-exempt receives fixed salary but is still eligible for overtime.
The copy we got last week, whatever it was, last week, on the 15th, has the position as exempt.
Yeah.
I think what happened, if I can jog your memory and mine, I think when we put out the job description, there was a conflict. One of them said salaried exempt and one said salaried non-exempt.
Is it the contract maybe that
I
says
think
salary
the one
non-exempt?
we put out there was different than the one that's here.
The contract said they were eligible for overtime, but the job description says not.
Okay.
interesting.
So either way, I think now is the time going forward that needs to be changed.
And that would be a contractual change, not a job description.
It would probably be a
change, that's
contractual
in the
change.
contract.
And maybe there needs to be a little bit more pursuit of how other communities do that. I mean, I don't think we expect someone that's salaried to work 60 or 70 hours a week without any compensation. But there has to be, it can't be the way it is. I mean, I don't know what the details or what the best situation for our community is, but I know that we've been paying a lot of overtime and a lot of communities aren't doing it that way. So,
I know it, we had an employee at one time who was salaried and his salary included 5 hours of overtime.
Uh-huh.
In their union contract, it said right there, so like it was just figured into their salary. I don't know if that's typical, I don't know anymore about that, but.
right.
Typically, when somebody's salaried, their overtime is part of their salary. You know, we pay them X amount of dollars, and if they happen to go over, the amount we pay them covers the overtime.
What you're saying, John, is that's why that position has a relatively high wage
Correct.
that's being compensated by. And it probably does get covered.
Well, back in the old days when I was salaried at 50 hours a week and I had to work them. And if I worked over, I worked over.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's just how it was. I could not work under.
Right. So
But that was, a long time ago. I don't know when, and even when I worked for the Quad Cities, I was salaried.
Mhm.
So,
And they get overtime.
no, I didn't get overtime. I think they did give me comp time, but comp straight time, not time and a half.
I was salaried when I worked for Blade Snowmobiles, and there would be weeks when I would put 70 hours, be on the road, put like 60, 70 hours in a week. What they would do is when I'd come home after a long stint, like 10 or 11 days, they'd tell me just take Friday and Monday out or whatever. There was some little something that they tried to help you out with. But I think this is the kind of conversation we need to have. What's going on in the real world with it? I mean, not the real world, but in the private sector, in the business section on how this is done. I think Andrea's example is is pretty good, that you were expected to work X amount of hours and that's what you had to
I thought
do.
it sucked.
Oh, well, I'm sure you did. Yeah.
That was gonna be my question, because we want to look for longevity here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so if you put
Yep.
it, maybe
Well, and
they
I
work
guess
40 hours, but this includes 10 hours of overtime also, if you end up working that overtime.
I think if you add that kind of language in there, that's,
Inviting.
Tricky, yeah.
yeah, I mean, just like, how do you,
How do you not end
No,
up
how
with
do
10
you-
hours of overtime every week? Or
right,
real
because
often.
that actually adds,
You know,
adds up a lot.
So I don't know where our best resource
And
to
so-
find these answers.
And then is government also different than the private sector? I guess that's a League of Minnesota Cities question.
Yeah. I do know that the argument last time with changing it from salaried, non-exempt to exempt was, then we need our city clerk to be available to work elections. And without that overtime compensation, they're not gonna wanna be here till 8 PM. However, our office is set up in a fashion where a city clerk can flex her time during election. I feel that our office staff is strong enough to help in the office if they need to flex time during election time.
And I know flex time was a big part of it, in general, of everyone, to be able to flex their time so we would not be paying overtime, but I don't think that necessarily had been happening prior to it.
Right.
Because there's a difference between flex time and then comp time too. And comp time is earned at 1.5 times.
So speaking to the,
I guess, go ahead.
go ahead, I'm
No,
sorry.
go ahead.
To Lana from Silver Bay, the
Mhm.
city administrator there, I think her ratio was 1-to-1
For what?
comp time.
Comp time was 1 hour,
Yes.
1 for 1?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
They're
She's-
part-time employees, administrative hour to hour, which means it's 1-to-1, and then her position is also that. So, like, for example, what you're talking about is like, just strictly for the administrator, the term is administrative hour to hour. So she's a contracted individual, however, she still gets paid for overtime, it's just hour to hour instead of at 1.5 times her rate.
Okay.
So she still gets paid for the overtime work, just not at 1.5 times, just at 1 time.
And that is after 40?
Yes.
Okay. She threw so much information in a short conversation at me that I was kind of like,
And
Yeah.
Silver Bay has 5 people in their office, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so Silver Bay's population is 1,860 people. Babbitt's is 1,380. Silver Bay's budget is 1.8 million. We're 2.8 million. They have 5 people in the office. We have 3 people in the office. Like, it's,
Is that over there? I thought they had a bigger budget. Yeah, they
No.
They had a bigger
I-
TV.
I Googled it.
Wow,
I don't know how they do
that
it.
surprised me.
I'd like to know how they
Like
do
$1
it.
million less
Wow.
and more people. I don't know what the rest of their city
Was
employees
Is
are.
that a current rate or was it for 20 years ago?
No,
I thought
25.
Silver Bay is much bigger budget than us.
That was according to the Google. I didn't get everyone's.
Don't believe anything you read on Google.
I know.
Well, I talked to her on she called me to return the call to me today, and that's the information that she shared with me as well. So on this city, if you look at City of Boston here, it says FLSA. What does that stand for, FLSA? Do you know, anybody? It said just FLSA exempt. Theirs is a city administrator. They're a town of 1,353 people. So they're exempt. Town of 1,247, Madison Lake, full-time exempt. It just says full-time exempt.
FLSA is the Fair Labor Standards Act.
Do you know what, but you don't know what their budgets are, right?
I did get budgets.
Oh, you did or did?
Did not.
Okay.
But so that's one thing that I think needs to be addressed. I mean, but I think we could, if exempt means,
That means not overtime,
no overtime.
right?
Right.
Okay.
So,
Well, last year, there was, in that position, how many hours overtime? Almost 100 or over 100?
More than 100.
More than 100. And prior to that was always like in the 30s, right?
Yeah, in election years, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I
And so
think the
last
main focus for overtime is election years,
So
because they are required to be here.
right, so that position had 3 times as much overtime as in the previous years.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, are we gonna have a contract with this employee? And if so, we could always stipulate in the contract that on election years, they get overtime. And only then.
I guess would it be during the election cycle?
Yes.
Did you have something, Elaine?
Flex.
Flex time?
Yeah, during election time, we've always had flex time. So, I mean, I used to maybe take off 3 hours in the afternoon, because I knew I was gonna work later that night.
Right.
Flex time instead of overtime,
Right.
because that could kill you.
Yeah, and like I said, from our standpoint, I feel that our office is strong enough to withstand that when we have election time.
to be flexing
To
more.
be flexing more. When I know we were talking about flexing for council meetings, that gets a little difficult with a 3-person office as far as flexing every other week.
Mhm.
Especially when our council meetings are Tuesday nights, that only leaves for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday flex time. That was a little hairy, but still would be able to work it out.
So in the pursuit of this information and talking to other communities and stuff, I found one common thing, and that is, and you guys probably know this, like Aurora and White Lakes and different towns, their hours are way different than ours. And I think that helps their ability to save that overtime, because they're not running, like in your case, the window is not open 8 hours a day. They set a certain time when the window is going to be open, so then that gives the office time to work and stay focused on other important things. We might look at, I mean, that would again be just a kind of a restructure of the way the office hours are.
Was the office staff, were they still working like similar hours? It's just the windows were these limited hours?
Right, and don't quote me on this, but I think I had a conversation with Becky from White Lakes a while back. It's been, and or maybe it was Aurora, but anyway, one of them communities, and they said, so what we do, so when it comes Friday afternoon, whoever is at 40, usually there's someone that hasn't been at a lot of meetings or something like that, they end up staying, so they go down to like one person, so they usually do it on like a Friday afternoon, or, they cut we could find that information out by phone call and see how that works for them and how they do it, I don't.
It was the city of Aurora. They work 40 hours a week, all of the office staff, but the office is open to the public Monday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Tuesday, 8 to 4, and Friday, 8 to noon. So their office is only open to the public 3 days a week. Monday, Thursday. Oh, no, Monday,
Tuesday, yeah.
and then Tuesday through Thursday, 8 to 4, and Friday. So they are open 5 days a week. It's just not the same hours that they're working. So they do have the window shut for a certain period of time where they can work and they don't answer phones, they don't open the door for the public or anything. It's just their time.
Right. So yeah, White Lakes and Aurora are on a schedule like that. Silver Bay, Wabick, and Babbitt are real similar. The other two are 8 to 4:30 or 8 to 4, and we're 7:30 to 4:30, so about the same. But White Lakes and Aurora have the alternating Monday 10 to 4, Tuesday through Thursday 8 to 4, 7:30 to 4, and then Friday 7:30 to 11:30, 8 to 12. So like the same, but when are your busiest times at the window? I mean, I know it's probably hard to tell because you don't know when anyone's coming in.
It's truly hard to tell, but I do have to say we have implemented an online bill pay system now. So there's that option, and we did install a 24-hour drop box outside. So a lot of our traffic is foot traffic for bills. And then, of course, like zoning permits and stuff like that. But I would see the public adjusting if we were closed on a Monday or on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, and that's what they
And
end up
that's
just,
to keep interruptions for you guys down.
Correct.
Yeah.
which will bring productivity, anytime. I know when I ran the lumberyard and hardware store, when I could shut the door of the office, and
Right.
you know that.
That's why I go
You
in
know,
early.
But
I couldn't bother you.
Even more so allow for the flex time to be able to happen, especially for our minute taker, who's the admin assistant, she works a window. So if that window is shut, then it would be easier for her to flex, yes.
So I think it offers the opportunity to cut down on the overtime and still offer a good product for our
And it's
community.
not saying that you guys are the ones that are doing the over, like, it's trying to streamline everything in general,
Yeah.
As far as this job description, like going back to Andrea's statement, that the last year here, there was 3 times as much overtime from that individual than there had been from
the
the,
previous years.
yeah. So with a different person in there, we might hope to expect something a little bit different as well.
How do you guys feel about salary exempt versus non-exempt?
I think they should be on salary exempt from overtime. Because that position does make a lot of money.
Jim?
Yeah, if you do salary, you're gonna have to raise the salary up to encompass some overtime. And there's gonna be times when it might be a 50-hour week, there might be times when it's only a 42. Lately, with all our council meetings, we do create an awful lot of overtime. And of course, that's because we're very busy. But if you go to salary, what you have to do is somehow come up with a happy medium that the salary is high enough to cover the average amount of overtime. And beyond that, even with elections, if they can flex, fine. But sometimes they're gonna work over the salary, the overtime. And, if I could use my ex-profession as teachers, we're salary, we had our hourly day, blah, 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 and whatever. But we did a lot of work outside of the school too. You're working at home, you're doing other things, you're attending ball games or, other teacher assigned duties. So the same thing holds true with something like this. If you have a salary, set it so that it can average out. She doesn't, or he doesn't have to have a lot of overtime figured in. And that's the purpose of overtime or of salary, is to encompass the average work week. And, even on days like this where we have council meetings or whatever, that salaried person can come in later in the day. Instead of coming in at 7:30, they can come in at 9, 10 o'clock.
Yes.
Work through the council meeting. That really isn't overtime.
No, that's the way.
Part of their salary.
Elaine, I think that's kind of how it was, wasn't it, in the past?
This is a long time ago, but, I got a salary, and I think it was based on like 44 hours a week. And I never got overtime.
Mhm.
And I still, many times, I worked more than that.
Mhm.
Overtime was there, but I didn't get paid for it.
Mhm.
But when Jim said, when it was a council meeting, sometimes I would go home like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mhm.
And I come back for the 6 o'clock meeting.
Mhm.
And work till 10 or 10:30.
Mhm.
But you just work it out, but I never got overtime.
Okay.
And it was not a contractual position, or no contractors. It was an at-will employee, which means.
Yeah, when did all the contracts start?
What?
When did all the contracts start coming in, do you know?
I have no idea. Maybe when Pete came.
Okay.
I think it was whenever the union,
Yeah, I don't know.
when, wasn't it Kathy that kind of got the union involved with the city?
Kathy,
Hoheisel?
she was not in the union.
No, I know, but I think,
You know?
I think she was,
No.
when did our city employees become unionized?
Well, they were union from the very beginning.
But like the supervisors and everybody had been union?
Everybody was in the union. We had one union and we had about maybe 15 to 20 employees.
Oh.
That was the first time I was on the council. And then I came back and we had half the number of employees and about half a dozen unions. I mean, the union was one person. I thought, my
but the
goodness.
administration was never in the union.
No.
No.
Not in-
No, I don't think the clerk treasurer was, no.
I think where Debbie and Kathy were at one time, but then they got out of the union.
Yeah, they had the choice.
And
to
Wendy,
join or not,
yeah.
but-
I think Pete started that.
Mhm.
They did have some kind of a union,
Mhm.
but then they chose to.
Get out.
get out of the
Right,
union.
right.
The overtime for the clerk treasurer started as a council motion pertaining strictly to election year, election times. And then after that motion passed, it was added to the next contract to allow for overtime, and it didn't have a cap on it or anything.
So I think we should go back to before where it's added for the election year. And as far as like Jim says, you have to compensate them enough to be working extra hours here and there. But we already do that at $85,000 a year at a full blown wage. We are already there. I mean, in 2022, our clerk treasurer, we always talk about how much more an administrator would cost us. We paid our clerk treasurer basically the same, just under what most of these communities are paying for an administrator. So I happen to have the from when they did all the training and stuff like that and all the overtime on there, and it was like $92,000 that year that person made. So we're there. Another thing in this posting, and we did it the last time, but then through a motion at the council meeting when the person was hired, she was hired at full wage less than 10%. I truly believe that it has to state in there that compensation is going to be relative to experience and education. I mean, where in your workplace do you go and you get to make the same amount with no or little or only a few years experience as someone that's been here for 20 or 30 years? That's crazy. That's absolutely, it would never happen in a business or in manufacturing or any type of occupation where you can just walk in there and you get the same that someone worked their tail off to get to over a period of 20, 30 years. Why should we? I don't think we should be any different than the people that are paying the bills out here, what they do in their lives. I mean, it would be a great world, but it's not real. The other thing, as far as,
Okay, so
yeah,
we're working on the clerk
Salary.
treasurer economic development authority secretary, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so salary exempt, salary negotiable is what you're trying to get at, right?
well, yeah, that the compensation for the job, we're basically going to negotiate. Exactly, we're going to negotiate that. If they come in and they've got, planning and accounting and all these things that make them more valuable as an employee, of course, we're going to want to pay them more money.
And so on this job description, do you have any things you want to take out, put in?
No, but
So how does this compare to where you're saying administrator?
actually,
Not pay wise, duty wise.
no, duty wise, you could take that
off.
off and it could say administrator, because what I've heard when I brought the word administrator up is we don't need anybody telling our supervisors what to. Is that?
That's a nice ringtone.
Oh, okay. What I like, I heard from the last council and stuff when we brought the word administrator up. I don't necessarily say we should have an administrator, but we need somebody in charge. We need a leader. We need somebody. So like in the case of Tony has to wear all these hats. You know, he's tasked with taking care of the construction sites and meeting with this person, meeting with that. He's the street department superintendent, or he's the head of the street department. Most cities have somebody at the top of the heap. That's the person who directs and supervises all the department heads and the employees, and they rate the grants. They pursue, once the council has an idea on something that they want to go forward with or they want to look into, they pursue the information. They work with the entities that produce the money in order for those things to happen for your community. And this job description basically says all that. One of the things that I would like to see that person do more is be more hands-on with the supervisors of our departments, not micromanaging them, but just knowing where they are, what they're doing, and following up. Just a little bit more accountability of what's going on in our community. And when you go door to door and you talk to your constituents, that's what you hear. They feel that there's more accountability. Now, I'm not saying people that work for the city of Babbitt aren't doing a good job. They're this is the way it's always been, so to speak. But when you read a lot of these other job descriptions, this line right here, directs and supervises all department heads and city employees. That is under supervised exercise. Supervision received is the clerk treasurer works under the administration oversight and works under the administrative oversight of and report to the city council. When it goes down to typical duties performed, the fourth line item says directs and supervises all department heads and directs and supervises all other city personnel with the assistance of department heads in the efficient delivery of municipal services. So it's basically saying you have somebody in charge of the whole. It's kind of like being the CEO of the company, I guess. Or go ahead, Leanne.
But if you have somebody like that, you're taking time away from them to do clerk treasurer work.
Well,
Are you hiring a clerk treasurer or an administrator?
I'm reading our job description.
Yeah.
This is our job. This is
Already
the
in there.
2014 is what the date was on it. But every city,
2014.
Yeah.
Is what it says on there.
it was, yeah.
10, 11 years ago. Hey, there's a lot on this job description.
There is. When you look at, you made a good point, Elaine. I think that's why a lot of these communities do have a city administrator, because there's so much other stuff going on. But this isn't, I wouldn't say that like what I just read, those couple of points, isn't an everyday, like they're spending the whole day every day. It's more or less making sure they're in tune with what every department is really doing.
I look at that and I'll tell you now, I'm absolutely 100% opposed to a city administrator per se. I like the clerk treasurer system. Some of this language could be changed very easily, but within the city of Babbitt, we're blessed. We have all of our departments have some very competent people that run their departments, and they know their departments a heck of a lot better than sometimes even a clerk treasurer. I mean, if you look at the library, extremely well run, the PUC, very well run, street department. I mean, even the clerk's office, just very well run. And who knows better what a department needs than the department supervisor? So rather than have the city clerk directing, the city clerk should be sort of like facilitating or coordinating the efforts. Because I don't believe the city clerk should be directing a street supervisor how to do his job, or a librarian, or stick their nose in the PUC where they know basically nothing. Or in the police department, you facilitate the work with the departments, you don't direct.
That's right.
So this is why I'm opposed to an administrator, and I think we should correct some of this direct supervisor stuff out of there.
Right.
You get a good good clerk treasurer, facilitate things. And like Elaine said, they've got a hell of a job to do just in their office.
That's right.
They're writing grants, doing the books and whatever, so let them do their job, be there as a resource person for the departments, help them along, get them grants, blah, blah, blah. But let the departments run their show.
I do believe that's what I meant when I talked to the lady from Silver Bay, and she's an administrator, and I'm not saying we should change our job description to administrator. And she was the first to say, I don't try to tell my department heads what to do. I don't know how to plow snow. I don't know how to fix equipment. I don't know how to run the arena. I don't know how to run the Zamboni. She agreed with all that, but she is in tune with where they want to go with their future, you know, with their more, I guess what I'm saying is more of a conduit relationship, because the things that those departments are going to need before it even gets to council and stuff, those discussions can be had between the person that's up at the top and those department heads. And that's what, maybe facilitate is a better word. I don't disagree, but right now I don't see us having, well, I've only been here a couple of years. We haven't had it, but,
Dwayne, I think I've been around a little bit longer, and I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know. And for the most part, we've been really fortunate in that we've had some really top-notch people that are the clerk treasurers. Run the city well, they coordinate with the departments, the books that are all done, you know, and I work, I don't know, probably with maybe 10 or 12 clerk treasurers throughout my career. And we've been pretty lucky. Life was a lot simpler years ago, but now it's gotten so complex with all of the rules, regulations, and all the hoops you have to jump through. But I say for the most part, we've been really fortunate to have good people. And the same thing goes in our departments.
I think the clerk treasurer should be informed, and I think that could be taken care of, you know, in half hour over a month. The supervisor could come in, you know, tell us, the clerk treasurer, what's going on and what they need, and have that be it.
In just the 5 days that I've been acting clerk treasurer, that's how our departments operate. They come in, give a recap, let me know what's going on, and that's what they're used to. So they just come to me and they're saying this stuff, and I'm like, awesome, great. And then I'm like, oh yeah, they're informing me so that I know exactly what's going on in the city.
Your
And their
communication's been good.
Yeah, yep, and they're all very used to that. So,
Well, that's
I
good. I was
also
gonna
think-
ask you what you thought. so.
yeah, I think that is how they're operating now automatically. But that being said, with Elaine's comment about then you don't have time if you do an administrator for the other duties. I think most cities that have an administrator also have a finance director. I think that's a huge part of the job. And if our clerk treasurer is doing financials, they don't have time to do financials and run departments. We need a fourth body.
What were you talking about, the title? A different title? Was I doing that?
Clerk/finance director. I don't know what the clerk.
So,
I'm also going back to what Tom Kelly said about the flow of departments, and if we're changing to administrator, the whole entire city structure needs to be restructured.
right, I think Mitch was alluding to that at one meeting last year. I remember I was in the audience and Mitch was talking about that. Do you remember that when Mitch was talking about the difference between city administrator and city clerk?
Yeah, I asked him why because all these surrounding communities have administrators, and he said I can almost quote him, I remember it, he said, with complexity of running even a smaller city like Babbitt or White Lakes or Bowatic, the complexity nowadays of running a small city and getting the financing you need and to do all the projects you want, communities are finding it advantageous to hire someone with a different skill set in planning, grant writing, and he went on and on. He added more stuff to it. He said, that's why you see these communities going the direction that they're going. Because I just wondered why so many cities had went that way. So
I've reached out to a lot today, especially around our area, and it is seeming that every community that I've talked to that has an administrator has, for one, more staff, but they also have a finance director, HR and payroll, and what was that? They have a deputy and some have an accounting technician. That's the structure of Silver Bay.
Silver Bay has 5, yeah.
Yeah, so what I've seen is people who have an administrator also have the big one being the finance director, which essentially is what this clerk treasurer position is. It's just called a clerk / finance director.
So you end up with more staff, basically. And it reminds me of years ago when we had a municipal liquor store. And we had a working manager and a couple of bartenders and whatever. Well, things were getting a little bit tough and we were starting to lose money. So the council back at that time hired a non-working manager to manage the liquor store. He didn't serve drinks. He just managed the liquor store to, make a long story short, liquor store closed about a year or two later.
Yeah, how could you?
They hired the wrong guy. I mean, the things he bought and the inventory he handled was not what people consume. So it was probably the worst idea ever.
And I think last time
Dave, you might remember that.
Last time we explored this, it was brought up that all of our supervisors are classified as working supervisors.
Boots on the ground.
So they're not just
Not
directing and managing.
Does Silver Bay, are all 5 people in the office, are they all full-time? Other than, the part-time deputy clerk, but is the HR payroll coordinator, is that a full-time position? How many employees do they have?
5,
No, Silver Bay.
like overall in the entire city. I'm not sure. I just know that they have 4 full-time staff and then a part-time deputy that's 32 hours a week. And the part-time receives, similar to the administrative hour to hour, they get benefits based off their 32-hour week. So instead of an 8-hour week, like holiday, it's a 6 hour because they work less hours.
Comparatively, their hours are their wages are less than what 3 are. Do you know what the salary for the administrator is?
She didn't say it,
Okay.
but it's more. I think if you add up all 3,
$99.
it's $10
Or
more,
48.
without including the administrator's salary an hour.
And the other thing you have to keep in mind, if you hire somebody with qualifications, you can't hire them at a whole lot less
Right.
than what we were paying our current one, I mean, somebody's not gonna come in and work for 30,000. So you've gotta be, Wayne, what you were alluding to, you gotta set that salary according to their qualifications. But where do you start? Like you have a salary structure you have with teachers, they have I think a 10-step salary schedule, and it takes them 10 years, 11 years to get to the top. But that doesn't mean that the superintendent cannot hire somebody on step 6. If they have somebody qualified, experienced, or if they're playing hard out for somebody to fill the job.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
So, so we've got to be a little bit flexible there, and I don't know how you put a job description out that way. You know, and want to try to attract good people.
Right.
I mean, it can be done, but we've got to be flexible too.
All right, well, we already stated that we were gonna negotiate this salary.
How does that work? Is that typical?
On a salary position, yes.
People would post like minimum starting pay.
There's a minimum.
Yeah,
Minimum and depending on
To
quality.
go forward, yeah,
negotiable
commensurate
depending on.
with experience or something like that.
I'm gonna have to leave in about a half hour, so
Okay.
if we have to move things along.
Oh my goodness,
Like on
okay.
everything here, I think we need,
Yeah. Okay, so Jim has to leave in half an hour. What do we want to do with this position now? So we need to determine, the job description, the hiring process, and posting the opening. So we need to firm up the job description before we can post the opening. The hiring process, we can probably,
I think we've already discussed that, and it's just, I think the biggest thing was to make sure that the applications are anonymous before
Yep.
presented to council, correct?
Right, and we're gonna use a point, and really, if Aurora's got to be, I think Aurora's got a great system. Using the point system, that stuff means something. Everything that they ask. And we got it in our packet. But that's something we can do if we're gonna post this for a month or how many days, 45, whatever we have time to hone in on that, on the hiring process.
So-
Part of it.
okay, how do you feel about the job description right now, the way it is?
I like it.
Yeah, I think we should just leave it the way it is.
The job description
Yeah.
as it is?
Mhm.
Well, except for where it says direction supervises all departments, I think that's, I don't know if that's a language I like.
I think we should leave it in there. It's been in there the whole time, and you're saying everything's working good. In case things aren't working good, at least we have that to go back on, and we can direct the clerk treasurer / whoever that is, that they, they're the person that takes care of the personnel problems for us before it comes to us. Correct?
They would know better what everyone else is doing as far as job
Right,
goes
right.
versus us.
Well, they do by the nature of their
Right,
position
right.
and the way they communicate with each of the departments and the employees.
Do we want to add
Because down here it says, oh, go ahead, John.
Do we want to add position type, salaried, exempt, negotiable?
I would,
Yes.
with the minimum salary being,
I think,
If
if I might add.
Go ahead.
Believe, so I don't think the salary is listed in the job description. I think that's more so the job posting thing. The fact that it's salary exempt is job description something, but I'm talking the base.
The
rate,
posting,
starting salary.
how do we want this out there?
Right, and negotiable on this
Yes.
job description.
Mhm. So back to what we were just talking about there, Jim, if you go down a few more line items on this typical duties performed, it says make recommendation to city council in regard to promotions, demotions, discipline, and discharge of any and all officers and employees of the city except elected officers and the city attorney. So I think we want to leave that in there too. I don't see any harm in leaving it all in there. Like you say, at least we can go back and use it if we need to use it.
and Kathy was in
Well,
on,
yeah, I don't have any problem with
Yeah.
that.
You
They
know
make
what
a
I'm saying?
recommendation to us, we
Right.
decide, we have the ultimate
Yeah,
decision.
we do.
yeah, because Kathy was in on all the personnel.
Yeah, I don't have a problem
Yeah.
with that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so then we should determine what's the minimum salary for this.
Do you want to make a motion to present the job description as presented as it is?
Sure. Yes,
I'll make that motion.
okay, we've got a motion by Fitzpatrick. Do we have a second? To
I'll
present-
second it for discussion.
Okay, second by Lossing, discussion?
So is that is with the change on the salary exempt, right?
Yes.
It's not changed, it
Oh,
says salary
true.
exempt.
It just hasn't been being followed.
So no changes. Because that brings me to the question about a contract. Now, there is a contract in place. It's a non-union contract. So if that contract says that if that contract has the overtime in it, that's something that we need to discuss and maybe put it on the next agenda.
Yes, we need to change, it needs to be changed, yes.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Well, just, again, I'm hung up on directs and supervisors, all department heads. To me, that tells them that the clerk treasurer can tell the department heads what to do.
Right. There's gotta be another word for it.
And
Well, but
coordinate.
they're also there on a
Yeah.
day-to-day basis. The city council isn't.
I know, but they should not have the power to order a superintendent or a department head what to do.
I beg to differ. Everybody should have a boss all the way up. And like you said, it's always worked fine this way. I'll use this for an example. Last year, when graduation was coming and our ditches had 1 foot of grass in them on graduation day, our clerk treasurer should have got together with, in my opinion, got together and just gave a phone call to the street department and said, hey, graduation's coming up on Thursday. It's Monday. Do you think you guys can get out and mow? Same thing. Peter Mitchell was coming and it still wasn't done. That's not something we should have to have a special meeting for in order to tell somebody that the grass needs to be mowed.
But the circumstances were different. They were shorthanded.
No,
And
that they weren't.
normally would have been done.
They weren't, the circumstances weren't different. We had somebody hired to be in charge and all they had to do was coordinate. They had went through a surgery and could not sit on a mower in an angled ditch. That's completely understandable. But that person is still the head of the street, the head of that department. They need to coordinate. However it needs to get done, it needs to get done. Just because they weren't available to do it. They have a short list of people that they can get in. I mean, I don't agree with taking that out. I don't know if we have to vote on it or what, but I don't agree with removing that out of there.
The motion on the floor right now is to keep it as is.
Yeah.
And so we're just discussing it right now.
Yep.
What did you say?
I would say facilitates or coordinates.
Yeah, I like coordinates.
Coordinates with all department heads
Yeah.
and directs and
Coordinate and
supervisors,
supervises?
Just coordinates with all
department heads.
I don't agree, but whatever.
Well, the motion on the floor is to keep it as is.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
gonna change my motion to change direct and supervise to coordinate on typical duties performed, line 4.
okay, so you're changing your motion.
Yes.
Do you, I need a second now with that change. Are you rescinding your second?
Yes.
Okay,
I'll
so,
second.
so now we have a second by Lassie. Any further discussion?
So coordinates with all department heads. We
So
should look
to
at
play-
Can you say it one more time so that it's clear?
Coordinate with all department heads and coordinate all other city personnel with the assistant of department heads in the efficient delivery of municipal services.
that. You're down on typical duties, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
So playing devil's advocate, what if they disagree?
Well,
Just playing devil's advocate.
What if who disagrees?
What if the city administrator, the clerk, treasurer, whatever we're calling this, say they're trying to coordinate and work with the department heads, and they say, well, the grass is really long, and the other person says, no, it's fine.
Then I suppose if that happens, then we need to get involved.
3 days later.
Would it be more beneficial if it read communicates and facilitates priorities and needs directly with department heads for the efficient delivery of municipal services? So communicates as in communicates between you and the department heads, and then comes up with a plan with the department head for what is the priority right now, what do we need, how can we make this work for the future.
So just,
That would involve the full council though for communication, which would involve the 3-day delay.
You want to be communicating with the department and facilities.
if I may, so I don't know if you guys read through all these, we have 5 or 6 other community job descriptions. And almost every single one of them in there, I lost it now.
Does that have like a flow chart, like an organizational flow chart? No, okay. Just wondering.
Says
Not that I've
something on that same line. Where did I just read it? Austin. Supervise and have day-to-day oversight of the activities of all city departments, heads, and the administrative staff. Recommends policies that further goals of the city council. But again, this is Foston, population 1,353 people. Supervise and have day-to-day oversight of activities of all city department. It's not telling them what to do. They're just
Edgerton says, performs general supervision.
what?
Says general supervision, so it's like the bare minimum.
Yeah. And again, here it says ability to plan and direct the work of operating departments. I mean, I can go through all these and find similar wording in all of these.
Well,
all
our
these.
main goal right now is to like get this wrapped
Right.
up.
So let's go.
So we've got a motion on the floor right now with the changes as noted by John. I forgot what they were.
Wait a second.
I had a second for that.
Did you say wait a second or?
No,
you got a second?
I had a second.
Oh, he said you had a second? Okay.
Yeah.
And so now we will vote on it. Okay, roll call please.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Lassie,
Yes.
Lossing,
No.
White absent, Zupansich.
Yes, motion carries. Okay, so now let's go on to, we are going to, oh my goodness, there's stuff everywhere. Job description, the hiring process. Okay, well, we can discuss the hiring process at council. So let's go on to the treasurer position opening, posting, and dates. When would you like to post this?
As soon as possible.
ASAP.
Okay,
Okay. And I have a list of places that we can also enter it.
do you want to read those?
Indeed, Glassdoor, ZipRecruiter, Monster, and MinnesotaWorks.net.
And then it'll also be posted on jobs for Minnesota, or I'm sorry, League of Minnesota Cities.
Right.
And, Indeed, and then the, what did you guys do? Did you guys do it in the Saudi paper? Like, do you think that's good, bad?
Well,
I don't-
I think we did up here, and I don't recall every place we did, but we did do it here.
Do you know-
I don't
so
if we
you-
did it in the city's papers or not.
Yeah, I don't know. Sarah, you were here. Where did you feel the most applicants came from?
The league,
The league and Indeed.
the league and Indeed, I don't know,
Okay.
newspapers are really expensive to post things, and I feel like social media is a very good outlet too.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of our applicants came from the league.
Okay, so then add social media to that list and then,
Yeah.
so we got the basics covered.
I have a quick question. Jim, if you have to leave soon and we have the EDA and Andrea needs to step down for that, do we need to recess this meeting and move forward with the EDA
I
meeting?
think we can move through this year pretty quick, can't we?
I-
What else do we have?
Possibly. I have one request on there
Okay,
under the clerk treasurer position and opening. But if you guys want to keep going with this to find out the dates, how long do you want to post
Posting the
this?
dates,
30 days, 45 days, 60 days, what do you think?
how long can you guys hang on?
Well, that brings me to the next question. In doing all of this research and kind of looking at it and just living the past week, my position does have what's called leave pay. And that is what is called in the absence of a clerk. And that means when she's on vacation, when she's out of the office, when she's got a doctor's appointment or she's sick, or they, I should say them. Not when there's a vacancy. So I want to propose a vacancy compensation for both Kirsten and I. It is within our budget because the training that I'm not attending, the training that Becky didn't attend and is not attending, just within the training and travel expenses in the administration budget, there's enough to cover the compensation that I'm gonna ask you for. I'm gonna ask for a vacancy compensation wage for the deputy clerk. Right now I get 3, I want 2 additional more dollars, and then I want Kirsten to get a $3 vacancy compensation raise per hour. The weight of the world is on our shoulders, and I have grant applications in my lap, and I have, it's so much more than it ever was when we had our vacancy with Kathy, and even then, it was difficult, and just a little bit of monetary appreciation will go a long way, and I can tell you it's within our budget without even touching the overage and the salary that we don't have during this vacancy. So with a little bit of encouragement and a little bit of monetary compensation, we can withstand as long as we need to.
I will-
Put that on the next council agenda.
I would like to put it here now and just ask for an increase from the leave pay in the absence to a $5 vacancy compensation for myself and a $3 vacancy compensation for a person until that position is either filled temporarily or filled. And while you're thinking about that, I also wanted to throw in, you saw this Section 1 bond agreement, the ABDU that we're gonna have hopefully come in and take care of our financials and get us caught up. That can possibly fall under this bond. They'll pay for loss and damages from a failure of your employee. I talked
So
with
the
Joey and
insurance.
Lily, yeah, so there's a good chance that this is all gonna get covered, and maybe possibly they'll even cover vacancy compensation. Haven't looked into it that far, but that's where we're at today.
So just to throw this in there, as I mentioned, I spoke with the lady from Silver Bay, the administrator, and she was aware of what we have going on, and shortly into the conversation, she said exactly, the people that you have there right now are burdened with a lot. Make sure you're compensating. I mean, that was just her words. Like, this is when you lose people, when they're under all the stress, and you know what I mean? So I heard that also from somebody. I think it's just kind of unfortunately, it's what happens.
Silver Bay gave our employees $4 increase during their vacancy. And then Aurora gave a retention bonus of $1,500 per person per each year and to their department head. So this is a common thing, and like I said, we're not looking at extra money spent. We're losing out on training and travel expenses in our department, and I feel that can compensate us for our duties.
I'll make a motion that we give Sarah and Kirsten the leave pay, Sarah getting 5 and Kirsten getting 3.
Okay, motion by Fitzpatrick. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Lassie. Any discussion?
I think they're well worth it.
Absolutely.
Roll call, please.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Lassie,
Yes.
Lossing,
Yes.
White absent.
Abstain.
Sorry, I could cry. Thank you guys.
Okay. Current financials
That kind of goes to this.
with this?
We
Okay.
talked to, did we,
We didn't pick how
How many
long we're
days?
posting the job for.
the question was how long can we
I
handle?
think we posted for,
45
do you want to do 45
at least,
at least?
minimum. I think we need to we can start with 45. I'm adamant that we need to post it till we find a qualified employee.
Okay, I was gonna say 30 and then with extensions. But
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean, well,
I don't,
if you wanted
well, like,
we did the 30 extra last time and we got 16 applications, so maybe 30 is long enough.
yeah, I know. Yeah.
with
How
extension,
would
yeah.
you like to see it?
I don't care if you think
I'm-
30 is
I'm
good.
either one, 30 or
We
45.
can do
30 is fine.
that.
I think you make sense.
And if
what
we
you
don't
said.
get anybody, we extend it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, 30 is good.
Let's do 30 and then approach extension after the third week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a motion for that?
I'll move. We post it
Motion by
for-
Lassie. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Second by Lossing. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay,
Perfect. Okay, so then onto the financials. Kristen and I met with Tom Kelly. He was gracious enough to show up for about 3-hour conversation regarding what we have going on and what we need. He was pretty specific about the fact that the auditors are going to work out the payroll dates that they have going on. That is their goal this year, is to make sure that the payroll is 100%. And that being said, he was very adamant about all we need is financial reports, bank reconciliation from January 2024 to 2020, year-to-date 2025.
and so the active contract is in there and that amount comes to $20,000. But that covers January 2024 to year-to-date 2025. And so if you base it on 12 months last year and let's just say 4 months now, it comes to like 1,000 something a month. Like 1,000, what does it even come up to?
And again, could potentially be reimbursed by insurance.
And it can be reimbursed by insurance. So I think that's well worth it.
I do too.
So we have all of these options here.
Yeah, correct. These are all the options, so we would only be doing the second option,
Okay.
based on what is already being handled and done by, Walker Honey.
Okay. So do we need a motion to, I'll move we, go ahead do for option number 2.
Okay, motion on
Second
the
that.
floor by Lassie, second by Fitzpatrick. Any discussion?
I have one question. This 1-day on-site assessment, is that something that they have to do no matter what? Or is that,
Nope, that was the one where it was the questionnaire and just trying to see and get where handle everything is, but it sounds like Walker Honey already does that.
yeah, and
So-
they're gonna be in communication with that?
Yep. Okay, any other discussion? Any further discussion?
I do have a question, but we don't, Walker and Gruenhagen, we have no idea how much,
We don't know that.
no,
Yeah.
it's gonna cost us yet with them. do we?
Right,
No,
I think they're gonna need the reconciliations.
before they can finish their job.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious. Okay.
I think they've tried
Mm-hmm.
and everything just has to start over then.
Tom made it sound like he said this is our best bet, 100%, and
Yeah.
that he will work closely with them to
Okay.
get us where we need to be, because
He also said that once all of the bank statements are reconciled, he is very confident that they can completely square up all of the payroll stuff too. So they got to work with them.
All right.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Lassie.
Yes.
Lossing,
Yes.
White, absent, Zupansich.
Yes, motion carries. Okay, so then we just need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Lassie. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Lossing to adjourn and go to EDA. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So let's go into the roll call where I need to step down right now. Right? Yeah. Well, not yet. So roll call, please.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Lassie.
Here.
Lossing.
Yes.
White, absent, Zupansich.
Here. Okay, so the purpose is to go through the commercial lot covenants and purchase agreements. So before I step down, we'll go on to the commercial lot covenants. Okay, would you like to take that away or shall I? So, as far as the covenants go, there were covenants deemed on these via council meeting and planning and zoning directive. I'm unsure of exactly the date. I wasn't on council then, and I think based on when like 2011 maybe or something like that.
Yeah, we did work on the
Yep,
covenants.
so long story short, covenants were adopted at one point, maybe 2011. However, and the council agreed to it, they were never recorded. Subsequent purchases happened, they said covenants applied. Some adhered to it, some didn't. But that being said, there's no legal standing with it because they were not recorded. So now we come forward to this first purchase
Yeah.
agreement. I did send out an amendment for that, and the only covenants that I found in the file and online were the building specs that Chris had drafted.
Yeah,
And so in the amendment that I wrote and I sent out, and I'm sorry I don't have a copy of it here, I sent it to Joel. And it's very standard language. I attached the building requirements for the exterior and stuff like that, what it's supposed to look like in the lot, and that they were to pull a permit in 1 year and build within a year of pulling the permit. So essentially 2 years.
yeah, there are things I think in the covenants that might have to be waived or looked at.
I
Because
couldn't
we-
find a list of them.
I got that, remember, John, we worked on that.
Yeah, we worked on it and worked on it.
And I don't recall all the
Mhm.
specifics, so I'm
Right.
not gonna get into it now, but I do have them, and
Mhm.
I'd have to review them. But, yeah, there are specifications there.
Mhm. Yeah, so, with nothing being recorded, we would have to add those on to the purchase agreement so they are aware of what needs to be done.
Yep.
And that is essentially what I have as far as that goes.
Yeah, I think we'd have to review them and see how they apply. And,
Okay, so when is your next planning and zoning?
well,
meeting?
actually, what happened was, we did schedule a public hearing for the 1st of May. I didn't get a hold of Chris in time. He published it in the paper for May 1st. I was gonna go for like May 5th on a Monday, later in the day, but he put it in the paper at 9:00.
In the morning?
Yeah, I was going to tell him to go a little bit later in the day, but he'd already published it, so that's what we gotta go by, and he already sent out notices that it's 9:00.
Okay.
So, they have met, we have met with them twice at the planning commission level. So the planning commission is pretty familiar with what the plan is. It's just a question of how the town would react to a conditional use permit.
Mhm.
And of course, after the commission, we hear them, they will make a recommendation to the council, and I will have them appear at the council meeting
Mhm.
to discuss things or answer any questions from the public.
So that would be the May 6th meeting then?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I was gonna schedule on May 5
Mhm.
because we have a meeting on 6.
Mhm.
So that ain't gonna happen.
Sure.
So I apologize for that. I just never thought he'd get it in the paper that quick. But the guy's on the ball. I wasn't.
Okay, so as of right now, where do we stand on any type of counter to the purchase agreement?
Well, I guess,
Are the buyers aware of, I know what I sent them, I didn't get any response back yet, because we have to wait for the conditional use hearing and such.
well, on the purchase, you have the lots listed at 5,000, right?
They're listed for 6,000 for sale. On this purchase agreement, he is offering 5,000. And if you figure it's $1,000 reduction off each lot, and we've been on the market for over 20 years, and I think the general taxes a year on each lot is like 100 to 200, you're already beyond that $1,000
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, for 1,000 items. I don't think it's that big a factor.
No, I would recommend that you take it pending the,
Yeah, pending
Covenants.
the
Mhm.
securing of the conditional use permit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You're making that motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we,
Oh, I'm stepping
Do
down.
you have,
you,
does she have to physically step down? Or,
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'll push back.
Just sit back a
I'll
little.
push back.
Yeah, so I'll make the motion, we enter in a purchase agreement for 5,000 per lot.
I'll second that.
You get to take over, Dwayne.
is it contingent on,
Contingent on the conditional use permit being granted by the council.
anything about that?
And the covenant?
So we had a motion by Lassie, second by Fitzpatrick to contingent on the meeting
Mm-hmm.
that we accept the $5,000 offer on the lots.
And then also the covenants.
Yeah, and I think what'll happen as a result of the planning commission, they will perhaps put restrictions or things into the adoption of the conditional use permit,
Okay.
the covenants. They will
Okay.
make a recommendation to the council as to what, the covenants be adopted or certain ones changed or whatever. I don't know until we have a hearing.
Okay.
So they will recommend that to the council.
Okay.
So anything else need to be added to that motion?
I don't know. What's the motion?
Accept the presented offers contingent on a conditional use permit being approved and restrictions implemented by the planning commission recommendation with said CUP.
Covenant,
I
I would say
think that's-
covenants,
okay.
not restrictions.
Yeah, put the word covenants in there. We don't know what they'll be yet.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Lassie?
Yes.
Lossing?
Yes.
White absent? Fitch.
Abstain. Okay, stepping back, Dan,
Move to adjourn.
motion by Lassie to adjourn, do we have a second? Second by Fitzpatrick, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for all the research. You had to do something fun?
Well, yeah, it's Saturday night.
Oh.
Sunday